Hello, welcome to my next episode in Antiquarian Rants, which is about the protection of our old buildings. Now, today I'm at Allestree Hall, which you can see behind me, and hopefully you can also see there's quite a lot of fencing around it and some industrial vehicles ready to do some restoration work. This hopefully is going to be a success story where it's recently been bought, someone's going to look after it. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with it. I've heard they're just going to live in it, which is great that it's going to be protected. Now, the problem is that that doesn't happen to a lot of old buildings, and Allestree Hall's been on the market it was definitely on the market in lockdown, and I think it was on the market before then. So yeah, it's been a while, and while these buildings are left unoccupied, they just deteriorate, and our heritage legislation really doesn't help that. So a little while ago I listened to an audiobook of Lady Chatterley's Lover. Right, I've got your attention there. I'm not going to talk about what people normally talk about. That it's actually a really interesting book. There's a little plane flying overhead, hope you can hear me. It's a really interesting book about that period of history. Now, for people who like the little facts, like did you know that a samurai could have sent a fax, you'll love that book. Because it is about one of those crossover periods in history where the protagonist, Lady Chatterley, is a noble lady in a marriage based on status. There's all sorts of stuff about the role of women and divorce law in days gone by, but also she drives a car. So it is this weird juxtaposition of like a Regency novel. It's after the Regency, it's a long time after the Regency, but also the protagonist drives a car, and I just love that combination. But anyway, it actually talks about the phase of history where a lot of these stately homes were being torn down, and I think, I might be wrong, I think what happened is that the listed building legislation was rushed through to stop that happening, and Lady Chatterley's Lover was quite a few years ago. I'm not sure how contemporary it was even then. I forgot to look that up before filming this. And the legislation hasn't changed significantly. It's probably changed a bit, but fundamentally it is still that bodged rush job which stops people deliberately tearing down stately homes, but seems to actively encourage letting them fall down. Because the problem we've got now is that anything that's a listed building, you're basically not allowed to do anything to it unless you spend an awful lot of money and prove you meet certain requirements. And most people just don't. And when you just don't do anything to a building, it falls apart. So there are many listed buildings out there that people want to love, people want to make sure they're protected, but when it costs 10 times what it should to do anything to stop it falling to bits, they just let it fall to bits. And I think that our heritage legislation is in desperate need of an update, because there are such strict requirements about, like, you can't even put window frames in that don't meet the character of the building. But things like changing windows and roofs that look wrong, you can replace them later. It's much easier to replace a roof that looked too modern than it is to sort out a building where it was just left to go to ruin. The roof fell off, it was left derelict for 50 years, and now you've got an unsafe shell of a building that's probably going to fall down. At which point, you can pull it down. And I think a lot of people deliberately let buildings go to ruin because it's cheaper to let them fall apart than say, look, I'm sorry, it's fallen to bits, I can't do anything, and then build something that you're actually allowed to maintain. And this also has a huge impact on some of the people who live in buildings, because it's not just multi-millionaires. Like Allestree Hall, I believe, will have sold for well over £1 million. But in Barrow-in-Furness, there are buildings which are blocks of flats, where these are some of the cheapest flats in Barrow, but the people in them are basically living in slums because they can't afford to do any maintenance on them. You've got window frames with holes big enough for pigeons to fly in and out through them. I'm not exaggerating. Go there and have a look. You will see pigeons flying in and out. There are holes in the walls where bricks have fallen out. And they're not allowed to do anything about this unless they spend more than the flat is worth on fixing the windows, which is just ridiculous. So yeah, our current state of heritage legislation, I get that something needed to be done 50 to 100 years ago to stop people tearing down buildings in large numbers, but we've had time to fix it and actually put together some legislation which protects these buildings rather than incentivises people to let them fall to bits. And I'm just not seeing any political appetite for it. I have written to my MP, I haven't had a response. But yeah, hopefully Allestree Hall's going to be a success story. But the number of listed buildings I see with basically no roof, no windows, and just falling apart because nobody can afford to maintain them is just shocking. This is not a success story. This is the Derby Hippodrome, or what's left of it. After many years and decades of trying to save it, a mysterious fire broke out. I wouldn't say who's responsible for it, but there's certainly theories. And unfortunately, most if not all of it is now having to be demolished. And here is the monstrosity that's replacing it. There was another one in between, which is the much loved and much missed assembly rooms, but that's a whole other story. But it just makes me sad that this sort of plain grey building is becoming so fashionable when it looked like somebody just drew it in PowerPoint and didn't bother even drawing it properly. But that's what we've got these days. And I kind of hate it. Sorry this channel's been so quiet lately. I actually got a new job as an archaeologist, so I've been very busy lately. Have a nice picture of Susie the fat guinea pig as a closeout for this video, and hopefully it won't be too long till I see you on the next one. Susie, did you just wee on me? You absolute piggy.